Okay. I think we're now recording. Yeah, we're now recording. Okay. So welcome to Meet the Buyer, Freemans Green Development. We will present to you across a number of aspects of the development. And we are going to start with the introduction from Claire Aspirations. So if you just give me a second, I'll move us along. Claire, over to you.
Hello everyone, and thank you for attending our Meet the Buyer event. So my name is Claire Aspirations. I'm Head of Housing Strategy and Development at Luton Borough Council. And this is one of the things that I do in my team is we build new council housing. And this is a scheme of new council housing, which is 4 and 5 bedroom properties, meeting a really high demand that we have for larger family housing across our social housing stock. Which meets, absolutely hits for us a lot of demand around families that are currently overcrowded or struggling to be housed. So that was the thinking behind the typology of the site, and we are looking to secure a main contractor for a design and build contract to take that project forward. So we'll be the client for this project. We're working really closely with our procurement team around this tender, and we are really keen to make sure that we get really good quality homes and promptly as well, that we get this moving as a scheme. But actually we also have a much broader agenda around using the work that we do to get good social outcomes for Luton. And that's in line with our approach to Luton 2040 and our wealth building policy locally. So we are looking for social value in this scheme. We really want to see how working ideally with people who are working locally, employing locally, investing in the local area as part of a kind of added benefit to this contract. And we want to make sure that we've got good homes for people at the end of this, and we've had a really good impact, not in the immediate locality, but for Luton as a whole. So that's our ambitions going in. I think that's covered most of what you wanted to cover, Damon. So anything else?
Just to touch on the considerate constructors scheme. This is a council requirement. Absolutely,
and we want to make sure that we get, as I say, it's not just the outcome, it's how we do it and what benefit we get during the course of the development as well.
Thank you, Claire. I'm now going to hand over to Toby Malloy, who's from the Project Design and Development team. Over to you, Toby.
Hi, thanks very much. Yeah, I'm Toby Malloy, the Project Design and Delivery Manager. I head up our team of architects, engineers and QSs. So we've been housing's design team for this project. So we've got a budget of circa £4.5 million for this project. We've achieved planning permission for the 15 homes already. Planning permission was granted 17th of May last year. So we've got 3 years to expiry, so plenty of time to implement the scheme. There are 20 planning conditions attached to the approval, a mixture of your usual type of things, split between client and contractor actions. Our programme for the scheme is to complete by November 2023, so November next year. Our procurement process is going to be via our Practice portal, so it will be on the e-portal system. It's a single stage tender, and the proposed contract is a JCT design and build with some special conditions appended to it, just to make some of the contractual bits work a bit smoother for housing and clarify a few bits. So the site is based in Marsh Farm, and we call it Freemans Green because that's the park that it's being built in, or the green space that it's being built in, and it's recently been named as Mosaic Close. It is a relatively flat green parcel of land that's a wedge on 3 sides with housing on it, and then the other side opens into the main park space. As you can see, there's a little bit of vegetation on the site, but it's primarily grass. Let's go on to the next slide, please. It also, Freemans Green, the park itself adjoins a regeneration scheme we've recently finished called the main marsh farm redevelopment of the Purley Centre. We've delivered over 100 homes, a mixed-use development with retail. I think it's generally been seen as successful with the local community and how it's improved some of the area. Marsh Farm is famous for a few things, but this regeneration has been successful in resolving a couple of the problems that have existed up there. So if you wanted to look at the kind of quality and what we've delivered before, if you go up the Mokes, and you'll see quite a lot of new development up there, which forms part of this. Onto the next slide, please. So the site plan of the development is quite simple. On the bottom right-hand side of the drawing, you can see where it just says Sherd Close, which is the existing road and main access into the site. Then the development sort of forks off on 2 roads to lead to either 3 blocks of houses if you carry straight on up Sherd Close, or if you turn left off Sherd Close, it goes in through an old parking court to form where 2 new blocks of houses are. So they're generally in blocks of 3, and they're 3-storey townhouses. So it's a fairly efficient layout to make the access work. And the access has partly been defined by some existing constraints on site with trunk sewers that run along the southern boundary of that site. So where the road goes along the southern edge, there's a pretty big trunk foul and surface water sewer down there. So we've spaced the houses out to make sure they miss those easements. And that kind of led primarily the layout of the site. On to the next slide, please. So the development is all 3-storey homes. They're all very similar typologies, which should help with some repeatability and efficiencies in construction and design. There's a slight mixture depending on whether they're end terrace, mid terrace. Some of them have garages and a 4-bedroom. Some of them don't have garages and are 5-bedroom. It's a pretty standard and typical design, primarily to respond to be in keeping with the local area, but also just to keep it efficient and practical for developing out and living in. On to the next slide, please. So our key sort of program dates, we're looking to start the SQ period on the 11th of April. I believe there is an expression of interest period just before that. So anybody will be able to jump onto the SQ and download the documents and put in their SQ application by the 26th of April. We'll then do an evaluation of that and shortlist. And I believe we'll be taking 5 to 6 contractors, but correct me if I'm wrong on that, Damon, to then do a tender. So the SQ will have a few quality questions included to help shortlist that down to the most appropriate contractors. We'll then open up a 37-day tender period, get some nice tender returns, hopefully back on the 11th of July. We'll then spend about a month analysing that, dealing with any clarifications, and hopefully coming to an award at the start of August. Standstill period will then commence before any proper works can start from the contractor on the 22nd of August. Next slide, please. So after that stage, we've prepared an indicative construction or REBA stage 4 onwards programme. It's based on a design period of about 40 days. So we've designed it up to REBA stage 3. There is a bit of development to do, some flexibility in what the contractor can design. So it gives you some time to prepare that yourselves. But the ultimate aim is that you commence that from the 23rd of August, and we'll look to commence on site around the 9th of November, giving about a year on site for completion on the 3rd of November next year. That gives you time to potentially do any surveys on site as well beforehand if you feel any information is lacking, but there's already quite a good package of survey information already prepared. Gives you time to submit planning conditions, your NHBC and highways applications and the like as well. So we feel it's hopefully a realistic programme that's not trying to rush anything and gives you sufficient time to plan and mobilise. On to the next slide, please. So that just shows that in a little bit more detail with the sort of key, the key tasks highlighted in yellow. So a couple of weeks to mobilise yourself from award, and then start the design for that 8 weeks. Obviously your design package can run on longer if you want to do details later on, but the main construction kicks off in November this year to November next year. And then obviously the defects and liability period continues after that. We've put that at 2 years to align with sort of NHBC 10+2 warranty. So we'd expect the main contractor to be responsible for defects for 24 months on this, just to align with the house building warranty we're proposing. Next slide, please. So as noted, we've done design to REBA stage 3 with some relatively detailed employers requirements, which sort of capture what housing need from an operational perspective, as they're going to be the landlords essentially for this for after the works are completed. So there's certain bits they like to accord with how they manage and do their bits and pieces. We'd like a BIM level 2 compliant design on it. So the designs architecturally have been done in BIM already, but need to be developed up and taken through. We also would like some sustainability accreditation to be applied to this, and we're looking to put in a SUS plan accreditation or potentially a HQM. That will come out in the final technical documentation. SUS plan is quite a new one to us, but it's, from looking at it, it seems a very logical and simple way to get a sustainability accreditation without the perhaps excessive and sometimes limited value paperwork that BREEAM or something creates. Social value we'll talk about later in the presentation. As I've noted, design is 3-story construction, external brickwork, UPVC windows, pitch roof, all pretty normal. The structure, we're quite flexible if you want to go timber frame, Mosaic, or something more traditional. But we do have quite a focus on sustainability, and the council wants to be leading the way to show how it can be done to achieve beyond what the new Part L is coming out at. So we're looking for air source heat pump heating with underfloor heating, PV, EV charging points. So there'll be some detail to be worked through to ensure we can go above and beyond environmentally. External works are fairly standard for the development. It's a mixture of permeable and tarmac construction, depending on whether it's adoptable highway or private driveways. As noted, lots of surveys have been completed, topographical, GIs, contamination, ecology, etc. And you'll be glad to know the GI looks very good for ground conditions, that we've got ground bearing floor slabs if we want them on spread foundations, and the chalk is about 1 to 1.4 meters below ground level. So nothing too bad, and there's no known contamination. The main constraint is that trunk sewer. Next slide, please. So there are a few approvals that are still required. We still need to discharge the planning conditions. The contractor will be responsible for those, and building control, NHBC applications, highways and sectional agreements, and bringing in any services. And then the main sort of challenges and risks to be aware of are this trunk sewer. We've got lots of local residents nearby. We like to try and keep them happy if possible, so a considerate contractor is important for that. Electricity capacity needs to be sense checked with regards to the EV charging points and everything. We're perhaps asking for a bit more than a normal development there. Integrating this new technology and making sure there's good handover commissioning, information to the tenants on how they can use this. It's a learning curve for all of us on some of this technology, but making sure there's that good sort of soft landing on completion will be important. And as we're looking for this high level of sustainability, things like workmanship are going to be critical, particularly for air tightness and the likes. And like all clients, we would like as minimal defects as possible. So there'll be a clerk of works employed on this scheme to keep an eye to make sure everything's going smoothly. Next slide, please. And just as a sort of heads up in terms of the future pipeline of what the council is doing, this isn't just housing. I'm moving into a new role on Tuesday, which heads up the town centre regeneration. And there'll be quite a lot going on in our town centre coming up in the future. We've got quite a big schools program coming up with extensions required to give education to all the people that move into these new homes we're building. Quite a lot of those are special educational needs schools as well. We've got quite a big corporate building program as well. New cemetery, we've just achieved planning permission to an extension to our Inspire Leisure Centre, potentially a new multi-storey car park in our town. Our wholly owned housing company, Foxhall Homes, is continually looking to expand its pipeline and deliver more housing. So that's always something to keep an eye out for. And housing as well are doing their own investigations into how their pipeline can be increased and where we can develop certain sites. So I think that's about all of it from me. Is it Vasima next?
It is Vasima next. Thank you for that seamless transition. Vasima.
Hi everyone. I'm the BIM manager for the council. And can we go on to the next slide? So as an organisation, we're planning on implementing BIM level 2 projects for all our future projects. So just a quick overview on what BIM is. BIM stands for Building Information Modelling. So BIM is changing how buildings are designed and maintained for within the AEC industry. It's a collaborative way of working, and designs are built and shared across all disciplines, from your inception or your initial design all the way through to construction, and beyond that through maintaining the asset lifecycle. It allows us to access data and design in real time. So as models and data is updated, it's being able to shared through a CDE to allow sort of the wider team to access that information almost immediately. So BIM is collaboration at all stages. It's also the creation of graphical data and non-graphical data, which I will explain a little bit more about in another slide. Can we go to the next slide, please? So BIM has 3 levels of maturity. So I think obviously initially a number of sort of organizations were BIM level 0, so hand drawings and CAD drawings with little to no collaboration. BIM level 1 is a mixture of 2D and 3D modeling and drafting tools, with maybe a small amount of collaboration in terms of overlaying 2D drawings and working that way, and sharing information via PDFs and via email. BIM level 2 is where we hope to sort of achieve most of our projects in the future. So it will be a majority of 3D models in all disciplines, which are then federated. We have a basic level of clash detection within those 3D models, and information is shared via a CDE to the wider team. And BIM level 3, the holy grail of BIM. So that involves 3D, 4D and 5D modeling. So 4D is your construction plan, and 5D would be your costing. And all of that is done using one model, which is shared within the cloud. So everybody updates this single model, which is within the cloud and is continually being updated. Obviously, LBC intends to achieve level 2 on all our future projects. Can we go to the next slide? So the stages of collaboration, as we explained in the earlier slide, so it's across all disciplines, and it's from design through to construction and managing the asset lifecycle. So starting with the briefing through to your initial designs, into planning, through to construction, into operation, and then the maintenance and the care of the asset. Can we go on to the next slide? Now, I explained in the earlier slide that we intend on sharing graphical and non-graphical data. So a quick overview of what graphical data is. So that would be the 2D model, the 3D models, 2D drawings, visualizations and renders, 3D diagrams and spatial diagrams. An idea of what non-graphical data would be: your schedules, your room data sheets, calculations, asset data in any format other than modeling, and also the O&M manuals. Can we go on to the next slide? So as an organization, what we expect moving forward would be an understanding of the ISO 19650 series, which is the recent international BIM guidance documentation. There are 5 parts pertaining to the contractual documentation, such as the EIRs, BIM execution plans, which are documents that are continually maintained throughout the project, updated according to the information and data being shared within the project. The second thing we would expect would be reasonable design and collaboration software. So we intend on sharing all of our documents within a central document environment. So that will allow all design team members and stakeholders to have access to information within the project. We currently use Autodesk Docs as our document management system, and all files are to be interchangeable in an interchangeable format. So models would primarily be in IFC format, and other drawings are also shared within PDF format, DWG format, and Excel and Word documents. Compatible design and collaboration software. So what we use in terms of collaboration at the moment is BIM, the BIM 360 platform. So platforms such as Autodesk Build for our on-site collaboration, and Revit in terms of modeling, and Navisworks in terms of clash detection. And again, all formats are to be interchangeable, and that will be outlined in the EIRs and the BIM execution plan. And also experience of successfully delivering BIM level 2 projects. And if anyone has any questions, my details are on the bottom of that slide.
Thank you, Vaseem. Fantastic as always.
Yeah.
So let's go on to aspirations. So myself and Fergus will take you through that. My name's Damon Pickard. I'm procurement manager here. I'm not running this procurement. Sandra Mullins, who you will meet later, is, but I am helping support the market engagement piece. And Fergus McLardy will introduce himself when he comes on in a couple of slides' time. So Luton 2040. So we have a 2040 vision, and our social values and local objectives need to try to be with an aim to driving towards that vision. So what is the vision? It's effectively Luton will be a healthy, fair and sustainable town where everyone can thrive and no one has to live in poverty. So I'm not going to read it all out to you there. You can read, and it'll be posted up for you to access, etc. But as well as tackling poverty, the key points are to be a child-friendly town, to be a town built on fairness and social justice, And the big focus that we've got probably in the construction area is very much to be a carbon neutral town as well. Hence things like the electric vehicle ports that Toby suggested earlier. That's all available. You can see the full strategy and the full document on the Luton Council website. So let's talk a little bit about social values. Now, I do have a film to play, and if you give me a second, I will get it up. I will point out, although there is sound, I can't get the sound to come. I haven't worked out to get the sound to play through Zoom, but don't worry, it's just music. So feel free to dum-de-dum in your head whilst it plays. Just give me a second, I'll get it up. Okay, there we go. So that's the social value video. So hopefully you found that helpful. Just to move on to the next slide then. So effectively, since 2012, we've been required to think about this at pre-procurement stage. One of the things that I will say is sometimes a small offering can have a big impact, and to really think about what you're bringing to the party in terms of social value. We will upload a little toolkit for you guys that will also signpost you to some organisations that are local to the area, as well as a list of organisations across the Luton area. And you can contact those organisations directly to have discussions with them about what sort of offer they might need within that area. So please go and do your research to understand what the local area needs and what these local organisations need, so that you can tailor your response to help deliver that. If you are uncomfortable with contacting organisations to offer something that or to find out what you need, but you've got an offer that you want to deliver, as the video said, we will include an organisation whose title escapes me. I think it's BLCF, and there's a lady there called Michelle Rigby who will help to point you at organisations that might benefit from the offer that you're coming up with. However, I stress, she is not there to help you come up with ideas. You need to generate your ideas, and then she'll help look at that idea and point you at the organisation that is best suited for that, if you haven't been able to identify your own organisations. So I am, and just to point out, corporate social responsibility is different to social value. And I think that's something that has been something we've noticed in bids recently, is there seems to be a confusion between the two, perfectly understandable confusion, as social value is still developing. But please have it in your mind, corporate social responsibility is not the same as social value for the local area. So yeah. So what could social value include? I mean, it could include all sorts of stuff, right? Utilisation of local supply chains and subcontractors, something we'll talk about in a minute. You might be improving the environment, contributing to net zero by bringing in electric vehicles. You might invite school children or college students to complete work experience, or you could provide school presentations to educate and inspire about what it is that we're doing and how we're delivering social value through the what do you call it? The development, the contracts. So, things like working with adult learning to help with skills gaps, opportunities for unemployed to volunteer and gain experience, taking on apprentices, all of these good sort of things that help to improve the local well-being and wealth building. And on the subject of wealth building, let me hand you over to, that was seamless. Over to Fergus.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name's Fergus McClardy. I'm the Programme Manager for Community Wealth Building for Luton Council. Relatively new role. I started about 6 months ago. Part of, or a big part of my job is trying to make sure that within our procurements and within procurement across Luton, that we are getting best value for Luton as a town and for its people and its communities. And as part of that, and as a part of trying to support the our 2040 vision, we're currently looking at joining the Good Business Charter, and that's just not the council. We're doing that in conjunction with a lot of other partners and businesses. And this accreditation ultimately asks organisations to abide by sort of 10 key areas. That is that they pay the real living wage, that they have fairer hours and contracts. And fairer hours and contracts doesn't necessarily mean that you don't give out 0-hour contracts, but it means that ultimately those contracts are correct for the people and for the job as well. But that ultimately it suits and is fair to the person who is in that employment. Employee well-being, which I think sort of goes without saying, or I would hope go without saying in this day and age that the well-being of people is absolutely key. That employees have good representation across the organisation, but at various different levels. So where unions are available, that they are engaged, but also that employees are listened to through management and their directors. Diversity and inclusion, again, and environmental responsibility, which we've talked about quite a lot at the moment and is absolutely key with regards to our construction contracts. Paying fair tax. So I'm not going to sit here and name businesses, but obviously there's been a lot of stuff in the press over the last, well, good few years with regards to organisations who aren't paying tax in this country. So there'll be an expectation there. A commitment to customers, which all good businesses and organisations should have anyway, and that obviously all sourcing is done ethically, and payment is made promptly. Now, if you would be interested in joining us in going through this process, we'd be absolutely delighted about that. It is not a prerequisite of winning contracts at the moment in Luton that you are part of the Good Business Charter. We ourselves are still going through the process, but we are going to be doing that. So if you would like to be involved, please do feel free to get in contact with me. But the key thing is that Good Business Charter is very much honing in on the things that we as a council and hopefully as a town moving forwards will really value and will actually create a lot of value for our people and our communities moving forwards. And ultimately what we're aiming for is that Luton will be the first Good Business Charter town. York has recently become the first Good Business Charter city, so that means that the council have signed up and an array of other organisations and businesses that are key and central to that area, and we are hoping that will be the case for Luton. Damon, if you give me the next slide, please. I am, and we are also here within economic growth to support you with regards to getting local people and local business is involved in your projects in Luton. And that doesn't just mean Freemans Green. If you have other projects in Luton at the moment or the surrounding area in which you would like our support, we're more than happy to help you. As mentioned, we have a good list of subcontractors now and local businesses that we can get into your supply chains. We are here to support you in addressing any skills gaps you might feel that are in the area and trying to also recruit locally. So please don't hesitate to come and speak to me in the first instance about those, and then we can move you on to other people within economic growth who can support you. And of course, these areas will feature prominently within the social value expectations. There is going to be a networking event. It's actually going to be a face-to-face live networking event, which will be the first one we've done for some time. That is going to be here in Arndale House, where I am now, on the 18th of March 2022. We have started to invite our local SMEs along to that, and the response so far has been quite strong, although we have only just begun. So if you'd like to come to that, please do contact Damon or me, and we'll get you on that list, and that event will start at 9:30 on Friday the 18th of March. And that's me, Damon, I think.
Thanks, Fergus. And yes, just to underline a couple of points there, as Fergus said, like this area in terms of local supply chain and local subcontractors, that is something we're looking to feature prominently within our social value expectations. And I understand that there may be some concern about that, but that's why we're letting you know there is a significant future pipeline. So there should be longevity to these relationships. So yeah, Fergus and I will probably be getting in touch with each of you if we haven't already, to understand your level of interest, areas that you may subcontract in, so that if you do want to attend this supply chain networking event, that we are ensuring that the the subcontractors that we're bringing to that event align with your requirements and where you see opportunity. So on that, I will now move on to the tender process. So Sandra Mullins will present the first slide. She's our quantity surveyor who's going to be running the procurement. Over to you, Sandra.
Thanks, Damon. Good morning. Well, it's just not really going to go over every dates because I believe Toby did cover that in his presentation, but it's just to really say that all the SQ documents will be uploaded with the full documents. Should you have any clarifications during that time, please use Proactus and get in touch, and we'll answer and clarify that as best as possible. The same goes when we issue the ITT. And really, it's quite standard stuff, but any sort of everything is done over the Proactus, just to emphasize that. But yeah, so if you have any clarifications, questions, whatever, you just ask me through the portal and we'll get back to you straight away.
Thank you, Sandra. So I'm just going to touch quick on the tender process. I'm not trying to teach anybody to suck eggs, but we have a varied range of suppliers who understand our processes to varying degrees. So I'll go through these fairly quickly. So the tender process, you need to register on Proactus because it will be launched on Proactus. And that's where we'll upload all of our documentation, and you'll be invited via Proactus to tender, or the notice will go out and you will be able to find that through, would it go out on Contracts Finder as well, Sandra?
Yes, it will.
It will. So so you'll be able to find it in the usual ways anyway. It's just so you know, Proactus is sometimes called ProContract. You might hear us refer to it as the portal. So I'll move on to the next slide. Just so you understand the process, obviously you've got your stage 1 SQ, they'll be evaluated, progress to ITT, that'll then be evaluated, moderated, outcome letters, standstill period, contract award, signing, mobilisation and go live. Standard process. I'm sure you've been through it many times before. But what I do want to say is please read all tender documentation carefully in full before you start writing your bid. And then reread it before you submit clarification questions. I estimate that 30% of clarification questions I get are already in the specification. So please do that, and please make sure you read your bid through before you submit it. That may sound a bit obvious, but you'd be surprised, or maybe you wouldn't. So clarification questions, as Sandra just pointed out, please submit all questions via the portal. Do not contact anyone directly. This is to give us an audit trail. We will generally respond publicly to all questions that are raised, unless you request that it be private, and then we'll determine whether or not we believe that what you're asking about is commercially sensitive, or whether actually it's something that should be made open knowledge to all. But please, if you do not request for it to be a private response, we won't even consider whether it should be. So yeah, and just to underline the point, put it in again, most of the answers to your questions will be in the documents. So please make sure you've read them. So specification, obviously read the specification and make sure you can fully meet the specification. If there's anything you can't, get in touch with us through the clarification portal, and we can see whether it's an issue or not. So quality questions. It's like completing a job application, right? You're selling yourself and selling the positives of your company. Please make sure you cover every point with clarity and detailed information, and assume that you've never heard of Luton before. Don't go over the word count. We won't count anything over the word count. I don't know, I presume there'll be some pass-fail questions, Sandra?
The pass-fails are going to be mostly in the selection questionnaire.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. And most importantly, think about Luton when you're doing it. An example of the sort of answers that we do and don't want. So there's an example there. Like I say, we want detail. We want to be able to score your question, your response. So So please be detailed in your response. It will help us immensely. And it will help you because you'll get a better score. So pricing, you'll be provided a pricing schedule. Do not amend the document unless it's in the sections that you're told you can. Please keep everything in pounds sterling. All the evaluation criteria will be made clear in the documents. Yeah, so upon completion, make sure you check the deadline for the return of the tender and allow time to upload it. It can take, you know, a few minutes. You're going to have plenty of time. So anybody who misses the deadline by a few minutes, sorry. If you need to also check the clarification deadline date, any queries after that date will not be responded to. Check if the instruction is to return your submission in a specific format and adhere to that, and make sure that you've uploaded all attachments. Where a word count page limit has been given, adhere to it. They won't be considered if you go above it. And please don't leave anything blank. If you've got no response, use NA if appropriate, so that we're clear that it's not applicable, and that you haven't just made a mistake or forgotten. Check that you understand the evaluation award criteria for this project. We've set 20% social value, 30% quality and 50% price. There may be minimum scores, but I'll leave that to Sandra to sort out. So there might be some minimum scores, but yeah, there will also be a financial evaluation as standard to check that we're not putting each other in at risk. And when you do case studies as part of the responses, please, the quality will be assessed against the examples you provide. So make sure the detail is there, especially the outcomes. And I think what always looks good is if you've come up against any issues, how you've overcome, managed or mitigated those. So yeah, we hold no responsibility for late or incomplete submissions. So bear that in mind. So a quick summary then, 15 affordable properties at Freemans Green. It's, although I put to be named at Mosaic Close, it's part of it is an extension of Shared Close, and the offshoot is Mosaic Close. Considerate construction scheme is mandatory. BIM level 2 to be implemented and delivered by the contractor. Use of local supply chains and subcontractors encouraged. Please come to the networking event. It will be educational and informative. The call for competition is planned to go live 11th of April. And just a reminder, read the spec, check the dates, clarify the portal, check your submission. And that's it. So we're going to move to questions and answer, but I'm just going to stop the recording.